The leader of the terrorist group, Jundollah, says the United States offered him broad support, including a military base in Afghanistan, to carry out attacks against Iran. This 2 days after he was arrested on board a passenger plane in southern Iran.
اینها رابطه کرده بودن که ما میخوایم با شما ملاقات بکنیم که ما گفته بودیم کجا، اینا گفتن در دبی ما میایم ملاقات میکنیم، شما با ما همکاری بکنید، ما هرچی مشکلات شما باشه این افراد از زندان آزاد میکنیم، به شما امکانات مالی در اختیارتون میذاریم و امکانات نظامی، اسلحه، مهمات ما برای شما تهیه میکنیم و در اختیارتون میذاریم و پایگاهی هم به شما میدیم در هر جای افغانستان که شما بخواید در مرزهای ایران. این حرفی که اونا آمریکایی‌ها گفته بودن در ملاقات دبی و ما الان موضوع ایرانه. الان نه موضوع القاعده هست و نه موضوع طالبان. ولی این که ما بگیم الان ما برنامه نظامی داریم، نه.
Was Iran's most wanted fugitive. Abdolmalek Rigi is now under custody.
Rigi also said his group was planning more attacks against the Islamic Republic. Abdolmalek Rigi and one of his aides were arrested on board a passenger jet on Tuesday. The terrorist leader was en route to Kyrgyzstan from Dubai on Tuesday when his plane was intercepted. He was arrested in the Iranian city of Bandar Abbas. Jundollah has claimed responsibility for the killing of dozens of Iranian civilians and security forces. Iranian officials say they have evidence that the group was sponsored by the United States and Britain. Washington and London both deny the allegation.
Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today, Monday, October 29th, 2012. I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube it is ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. Okay, so we just saw this video right here. This is actually from 2010. Arrested terrorist confesses that the U.S. offered full support of Jundollah. And I covered an article just recently, about a week ago, that was exactly like this article. This is from 2010 too, but it was the same thing. It was a suicide bomber, Sunni suicide bomber in Iran that was stopped. He had made it almost inside the mosque, but he was stopped by security or something like that. But this title, Suicide Bombing at Iran Mosque Kills Scores During Shia Holiday, and Jundollah Claims Responsibility. So this the only reason I'm covering these is because of this article from 10/29 today from the Jerusalem Post. Iran's Sunnis demand greater religious freedom. So a minority religious leader calls for political acknowledgement. Tehran blames Israel for Sunni terror attacks. Sunni Muslims in Iran make up for only about 10% of the Islamic Republic's population. Also, what they said is that it is our legal right as Sunnis to be acknowledged and participate in the fate of our country. So it's kind of interesting too that back in 2010 that individual was saying that it wasn't so much about Taliban or al-Qaeda as it was Iran. So you can see that he was right what he was saying. So, but when you see the Zionists say, oh, you know, these people are being oppressed and you know, they need greater religious freedom. I mean, it's just a bunch of BS. They don't even have that in their own country. So you can just see right through the whole humanitarian BS. The report says Israel sells drones to Azerbaijan. Global Post reports Israel, Russia, and Iran violating UN-imposed embargoes by selling arms to Armenia and Azerbaijan. So, and that ties into this article from the Global Post, but it was carried by Stratris. Israeli arms exports fuel Armenian-Azeri conflict could foment major regional war. Yeah, and Iran is kind of trading mostly with Armenia to basically go around sanctions and embargoes to receive stuff from Russia, and then you have Azerbaijan receiving stuff from Israel. It says there is a Cold War going on between the Azeris and Armenians that regularly flares into deadly confrontations in which the scores have been killed. Then news on Libya is CIA agents in Benghazi twice asked for permission to help Ambassador Chris Stevens as bullets were flying and twice were told to stand down. So revelations shed new light on the effectiveness of the CIA at Benghazi and the level of support they were given. Now this I actually do believe, because remember I covered this in one of the reports in articles about how the CIA had they had like little bases or administrative buildings and stuff like that that were known, that were attacked, and those people that were saying they were just diplomats and administrative were actually CIA members that were killed, which is why, of course, they sent in Marines after the Delta Force were supposedly already there. But the truth is going to keep trickling out, but it doesn't really matter because they're just making it into a political, I don't even know what you call it, a melee or something like that. But like I said before, the argument that should be made is that the U.S. and France and NATO and all them, they shouldn't have even went into Libya and done what they've done. So they all are going to pay for what they did. But on the other hand, it's not going to be the douchebags that push this policy like Clinton that are going to pay. No, they're not going to pay. The Libyan people are going to pay. People in Bani Wali, they're getting thrown out of their own town and hit up by the puppet regime that was in place there after Gaddafi, and the terrorists and the other sects that hate them in Bani Wali are just carrying out a genocide, and the West just turns their blind eye. So those are the people of Bani Wali that are going to pay, and those members of the military and intelligence community that were in there that got killed and didn't do anything, well, you know, they also had to pay too, like Christopher Stevens. But the whole point, of course, was what? To create this instability. They wanted it to happen. Like I said before, there was many, including Stevens himself, warned about it. The last prime minister or president of Libya stepped down because he's saying that there's no security here. And that was the whole point. So that's what I'm trying to say here, that they let this thing happen for a reason. Top AFRICOM commander General Carter Ham was never ordered to save U.S. men in Benghazi, so AFRICOM leader was never given the order to secure the consulate in Benghazi. That is what the general told Representative Shafetz after the 9/11 Benghazi terror attack. This was despite many pleas for assistance coming from the consulate. So it says this means that only Barack Obama or Defense Secretary Panetta, the two men above, never ordered the operation to secure the consulate. And keep moving here. Russia urges International Criminal Court to probe war crimes in Libya. So they've urged the ICC to probe all war crimes in Libya. This is what the Foreign Ministry of Russia has stressed, saying they should focus, among others, on crimes committed following the military campaign in Libya in October last year. So yeah, I mean, this is crazy because they got what, Saif Gaddafi or something like that, one of Gaddafi's sons, and they're trying to put him in the International Criminal Court and stuff like that. But if it's not going to be there, it's going to be what, in Libya, of all places, and that's going to be like throwing a match into a tank of fuel. If they turn him over to the Libyan officials, you got to remember that video where his son actually got tricked by the opposition. You know, oh yeah, here, do this, and we'll do this and do that, and they tricked him and they screwed him. So it says here, U.S. expands secretive drone base for African shadow war, and they're talking about, I've covered this before in the Horn of Africa, Camp Lemonnier, originally a French colonial outpost. I think this is Djibouti is how you pronounce it, a tiny impoverished nation just north of Somalia. So that's where they've been carrying out a lot of the drone strikes in Somalia, and probably Yemen, but who knows. So they're saying the Pentagon's secretive drone and commando base in the Horn of Africa is getting a lot bigger and a lot busier as the U.S. doubles down on its shadow campaign of airstrikes, robot surveillance, and special operation forces raids in the terror havens of Yemen and Somalia. Oh, okay, so this is, remember this, the Pentagon spending $1.4 billion to expand the base's airplane parking and living facilities. Remember we're talking about increasing drones, the amount of drones, the CIA in that. So the extra housing could accommodate another 800 commandos, the Post reports. So other shadow hush-hush drone intel bases are located in Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and the island nation of the Seychelles. Yeah, it's same story, different article. Around the clock, 16 times a day, drones take off or land at a U.S. military base here, the combat hub for the Obama regime's counterterrorism wars in the Horn of Africa and the Middle East. So this Camp Lemonnier began as a temporary staging ground for U.S. Marines looking for a foothold in the region a decade ago. Over the past 2 years, the U.S. military has clandestinely transformed it into the busiest Predator drone base outside the Afghan war zone, a model for fighting a new generation of terrorist groups. Speaking of Yemen and drones, U.S. drone strike kills 4 in northern Yemen, 2 Saudis among those slain in the attack. So there you go, there's a little map of Somalia, there's the Djibouti, whatever, and there's Yemen. Moving on here, Yemeni MP says drones prepare the ground for al-Qaeda. I covered this, on the 17th. The U.S. drones war is not only causing blowback, it's causing dangerous instability in Yemen, which, of course, they've had to send more tanks, more Marines and ammunition and funding them as well recently. And they did a big chunk about 2 years ago. So al-Qaeda leader urges kidnapping of Westerners. This guy is probably on direct payroll of the Central Intelligence Agency. That'd be my bet. So for those al-Qaeda that are basically threatening kidnapping Westerners, and Westerners, you should be scared of Iranian terrorists inside the United States, Secret Service is saying contact your nearest field office to report a tweet. So contact your nearest field office with time-sensitive or critical information or to report a tweet. So a lot of people are kind of bashing it right there on their thing. I hear there's a sale on hookers and cocaine in Colombia. This, of course, is time-sensitive and critical information for agents. Crazy, because I think one of the agents just today was in the news about abusing or accosting a female 14-year-old that was in custody. Says, worthy of trust and confidence. That's right. And if you say anything bad about the president, well, you might just get a visit from the Secret Service, the Men in Black. Drone murders of Americans, totally right, and totally constitutional. Homeland Security chairperson. So this is Peter King, of course, a big neocon. And it goes on, it says, and if you question it, oh, see, if you question this, you're a horrible moron. You might get a visit by the Secret Service as well. It's been declassified. A Predator drone turns itself on at military base. Recently, the Washington Post has been running an investigative report on the U.S. wars or shadow wars throughout the Horn of Africa. This report includes an article series on drones. And it goes on here, says that one of them reveals an incident reports in which drones have went haywire, crashing, misfiring, and in one case, a drone even turning itself on. It started its engine without any human direction, even though the ignition has been turned off and the fuel lines closed. And I always like seeing these drone videos on YouTube and stuff with all these little drones, and people think they're so cute, and, oh, you know, a drone plow, and they got a little kid sitting there watching it. You know, the drone sweeping up the snow instead of actually doing it themselves, right? And then you wonder why everybody's obese, because they're having machines take the place of everything, and then eventually they become obsolete. So I mentioned this yesterday to a friend. It's like people are literally going to laugh themselves out of existence. Haha, big effing joke, right? Kind of like the Cheetah bot, and just like the DARPA bot that they're showing every month now, increasing its agility and whatnot, and people laugh at it. Oh, look at the cord hanging off of it. Oh, I'll just shoot it with my shotgun. U.S. clearly not tolerant of terror drone attacks, says critics in a report. So the U.S. Detained a Pakistani politician on Sunday. It says in the U.S.'s third intimidating action against its critics this year. It'll be good press for him. He might get in, but it doesn't really matter. Like I said, as long as the U.S. keeps paying Pakistan billions of dollars, it's just not going to really matter how much people protest. 10 anti-drone protesters arrested at Hancock Field. Remember, this is from October 5th. Nonviolent anti-war activists imprisoned for protesting drone attacks from October 13th. They were arrested for trespass as they attempted to deliver an indictment to Brigadier General Scott Vanderham, the base's commander. Actually, they got what? They got one got 6 months, another kept on a short government leash for the next 5 years. Probation. South Africa's ruling party endorses anti-Israel boycott. Senior members of South Africa's ruling party have endorsed a boycott campaign against Israel, calling Tel Aviv far worse than apartheid South Africa. Let's not forget, South Africa was one of the few countries that rejected the political assassination of Libya's Gaddafi. And Palestinians are vowing to press forward with UN recognition despite Israeli and U.S. objections. Actually, they're threatening financial diplomatic retaliation. And talking about hurricane and diversion, one of the things I noticed, guys, was what? I'm seeing kind of a blackout, almost like a real big problems here. Error establishing database connection with like a lot of articles I'm trying to access. They're not available. Obama urges governors to celebrate the United Nations Day. Jewish voters favor Obama over Romney? No. The poll says Israeli Jews prefer Romney. Well, they're both the same, right? Former official Dennis Ross says Obama's Israel ties are without precedent. And he dismissed disinformation that had led critics to conclude that Obama is less than a total shill for the Israeli lobby. With hand on heart, Pelosi admits Israel comes first. That's right. Factory says U.S.-Israel relationship is unbreakable and our dedication to Israel's security is unshakable. Top 15 richest members of Congress have been exposed, and guess who's on the list? Nancy Pelosi. It's up there with the Bergs and the Feinsteins. The richest U.S. city is Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the fourth highest proportion of Jews. New Congress has record number of Jews. And even though they make up less than 2.5% of the U.S. population, they have 10% representation in Congress. This is GGN. Thank you.